Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects millions of people, yet is so often understood. We are going to decode the incredibly complex, progressive biological chain reaction of rheumatoid arthritis. We'll be breaking down exactly how this condition operates into clear, bite-sized steps. So, let's jump right in and translate this heavy science into something we can all easily grasp. Take a look at this. These are the actual clinical notes mapping out the pathogenesis, basically the origin story of rheumatoid arthritis. Looks a little dense, right? Well, don't worry, we're going to break these intense medical concepts down into a story that actually makes sense. This is essentially the blueprint of how the body's very own defense system misfires. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll ask what is rheumatoid arthritis? Then, we'll look at the autoimmune trigger, followed by sparking the inflammatory process, the stages of joint damage, and finally, chemical mediators and pain. Section 1. What is rheumatoid arthritis? The big picture. Okay, so at its core, rheumatoid arthritis, or RA for short, is defined as a chronic, progressive, autoimmune, inflammatory disease that mainly targets your joints and periarticular tissues. Whew, that is quite a mouthful, isn't it? If you just read that on a page, your eyes might glaze right over. So let's pull this apart word by word to truly understand what a patient's body is actually going through. Let's start by de-jargonizing what is arguably the most important word in that whole definition, autoimmune. Honestly, if you take away just one thing from this section, make it this. An autoimmune condition means your body's own defense system, the one designed to fight off viruses and bacteria, basically gets totally confused. It experiences friendly fire, turning around and attacking your own perfectly healthy cells. This massive miscalculation by the human body is exactly what makes the condition so uniquely challenging. Next up is the word progressive, and man, this one is absolutely crucial. It tells us that RA isn't just a static condition. It doesn't just happen once and stay the same forever. Without medical intervention, this disease acts like a biological domino effect. It develops gradually, moving in stages, step by step, and frankly getting worse over time as the immune system just keeps up its mistaken assault. And finally, RA hits the joints and the periarticular tissues. So, what does that actually mean? Well, periarticular simply refers to the tissues right around a joint. We're talking tendons, ligaments, protective bursae. The big takeaway here is that the inflammation doesn't just hurt the exact spot where two bones meet, it's attacking the entire structural framework surrounding the joint. Moving on to Section 2, the autoimmune trigger, the spark. Now, it's really vital to understand that the root cause of this is deeply internal. You see, a lot of people confuse rheumatoid arthritis with normal joint wear and tear, but it's totally different. This isn't from pitching too many baseballs or running on hard pavement for years. It is explicitly caused by an internal autoimmune reaction. The body is literally doing this to itself. And the exact microscopic culprits? Antigen-antibody complexes. Normally, your antibodies lock onto foreign invaders, called antigens, to clear them out. But in RA, these tiny clusters formed by the immune system just build up. These specific complexes are the actual triggers that sound a massive false alarm inside the body. Which brings us to Section 3, sparking the inflammatory process, the pathogenesis. The second those antigen-antibody complexes sound that false alarm, the body reacts by releasing inflammatory mediators. And the kicker? They are released directly into the joint spaces. Just imagine your body suddenly flooding the delicate hinges of your knees, wrists, or fingers with powerful, irritating chemicals designed to fight a war that isn't actually happening. The arrival of these mediators is what officially kicks off this active, progressive inflammatory process. Honestly, it's like pouring gasoline on a tiny spark. What starts as microscopic confusion rapidly escalates into a runaway inflammatory response that actively damages the body's own tissues. All right, Section 4, stages of joint damage, the domino effect. This joint damage cascades in 4 very distinct progressive steps. First, it begins with vasculitis. Second, it moves to synovial edema. Third, inflammatory cell infiltration. And finally, step 4, where new chemical mediators are produced. This structured sequence is kind of fascinating because it shows us exactly how the condition digs its heels deeper and deeper into the joint. Let's zoom in on that very first domino for a second, vasculitis. This simply means inflammation of the blood vessels. And that's a huge takeaway for us. The The visible joint damage actually starts with the blood supply feeding the joint. The vessels get inflamed first, which sets the entire stage for the fluid buildup and cellular infiltration we see in steps 2 and 3. And finally, Section 5, Chemical Mediators and Pain, the real-world impact. By the time we hit that 4th stage of joint damage, the local environment inside the joint has completely changed. The body, stuck in this chaotic loop, starts churning out entirely new, specific chemical mediators. And these chemicals aren't just a byproduct, right? They actually sustain and amplify the destructive loop, basically locking the joint into a state of chronic disease. According to the clinical notes, there are 2 main culprits produced here: prostaglandins and leukotrienes. These are the specific molecular engines driving the patient's discomfort. Now, while both play a big role in inflammation, we're going to focus in on the behavior of the first one on our list today. So connecting this all back to what a real person actually feels, prostaglandins cause localized vasodilation, which is just a fancy way of saying they forcefully expand the blood vessels in the area. That's what causes the heat, redness, and swelling you see in an arthritic joint. But more importantly, these prostaglandins are directly responsible for the physical pain associated with rheumatoid arthritis. It's the literal biological reason behind the suffering. And that brings us to the end of our breakdown. Seeing this relentless biological chain reaction laid out so clearly really leaves us with one vital, proactive question. Knowing that RA is a progressive cascade leading directly to structural damage and pain, how can modern medicine intervene to stop that initial antigen-antibody spark before those dominoes ever start falling? It's a massive question that drives modern rheumatology, and definitely one to keep in mind as you continue exploring medical science. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.